Well, if that's true, then we also got to remember when Kanye West was sane. And I'm not saying he's insane, but I'm saying when he was not labeled as an insane person, he said, even if I'm in a Benz, I'm still in a coupe.
Yeah.
So we're still driving around in someone else's reality. More comfortable, more, we're eating steak, Jay-Z. This is Jay-Z said. Jay-Z said, you know, what you eat not gonna make me use the bathroom. And he didn't say it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
But if you understand it, it's like, wait, hold on. But what if we all can eat? Right?
Yeah.
And those things, those seeds of value have to be planted because we're at war.
Yeah.
And by the time we realize it, it'll be too late.
100 yards, 100 yards, 100 yards, 100 yards, run it.
Dr. Yusef Salaam, thank you for sitting down with us today. I really appreciate it. Welcome to Young Atlas. We're a Harlem-based media outlet, so I thought it was only right we sit down, with yourself, and congratulations on your recent election. That's big news. So I want to give the viewers a little bit of a story about yourself and obviously where we are today. So I want to start at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit just about briefly how it was growing up in Harlem, back in the 70s, 80s, what New York and Harlem was like during that time?
Well, it's interesting because I think every childhood that a child has is not different from anyone else, except that if you move to another space, in the borough or, in New York or even in, this part of North America, you find that there's differences. And a lot of times those differences are more pronounced the more you go out. In New York, it was commonplace for, a child to be outside after school, especially, and for that child to also come back home when the lights came on. That was an indication that it was time to be home.
Right.
We didn't have these cell phones back then. Sometimes mothers and fathers or aunts would yell out the window, signifying that you need to come upstairs. But we all hung out in the community and, doing things like drinking from fire hoses or for folks that might not be familiar with that, like the Johnny Pumps is what we call them, they were still rusty, they were still dirty, dogs still urinated on them, but we completely it was like oblivious to us. This was our home. And for fun, because of and we didn't notice at the time, but lack of services or services being pulled out of our community, disappearing from our community, we would still find ways to have fun, whether that meant flipping on mattresses. Those mattresses were, of course, dirty because they came out of people's homes and, they were ripped up and they had coils sticking out, many of them. But a lot of people learned how to do backflips. A lot of people learned gymnastics on those same mattresses.
Right.
Hide and go seek in abandoned buildings, because Harlem was a place that had lost so much investment. It was difficult to find what I now know is meaningful existence. But we took those lemons and made lemonade. And it was a beautiful thing to see that, especially when you can look back and understand exactly what was and now see what is.
Right.
Right. So for me, I had no idea what I now consider the American nightmare. For me, it was all the American dream. It was like being able to get up and, in my home, my mother would play, records that had different languages playing. So I would wake up to Portuguese or Swahili or French, Spanish, and for me and my children, my family, my brother and my sister, we were learning about the world, even though we were in Harlem, confined to the 5 boroughs.
Right. That's very interesting because it's kind of like ignorance is bliss in a sense, in terms of not understanding if it's a dream or a nightmare. Can you go into that a little bit in terms of what you mean by meaningful existence?
Well, meaningful existence is only something that can be defined once you see things differently, or once you experience difference. The experience of what difference is, you say to yourself, oh, wow. If, for instance, luxury buildings come into our community, like I've been in positions when, I had a big brother and big sister from the Big Brothers and Big Sisters League of New York. My sister had big sisters. I had big brothers. My brother had big brothers. And the buildings that they lived in, these were white folks that meant well and did well by us. A lot of them had buildings with doormen.
Right.
Buildings where people would receive the packages. You think about the juxtaposition today, people are stealing packages. People are, there is no doorman. In our community, we may have walk-ups. And in other communities, similar style buildings, there's always an elevator.
Right.
The juxtaposition, in a way, has made Black Harlem and Black New Yorkers who they are. That resilience, that toughness, that grit, if you will. And because we didn't know any better, because we didn't have any, difference of views, if there was no YMCA in our community, we didn't know there was no YMCA in our community. It just never was.
Right.
Right? But what did we do? We still went to Central Park and climbed trees and, learned martial arts and different things,
Yeah.
Yeah, we still made lemonade out of the lemons that we had.
For sure. And it's interesting, like obviously during that time, especially in New York, it's like a spotlight of those two different worlds, because especially when you're growing up, we're talking late 70s, 80s, Wall Street is making tons of money downtown. And then obviously there's a new drug epidemic. So it's kind of a volatile period. And there's just that racial dichotomy, that economic dichotomy that you're talking about. And then obviously going forward a little bit, we're talking about that, terrible experience that you had to go through that might, looking back on it, might have been a great experience, the way you were able to utilize it for the better. I don't want to use this interview to talk too much about that. I think it's important, obviously, to bring up for people that might not be aware. I'd love it to hear in your terms, maybe if you could take us back, whatever you're comfortable with that moment of when, your life changed so drastically. Can you walk the viewers through that a little bit? I think it's very important.
Well, before I do that, one of the things that I want to make clear
Yes.
is just the understanding that it wasn't that ignorance was bliss, but as a person who is new to politics, one of the things that I've become very, very much aware of, like I've been trying to define and give definition to different things so that they can be understood across the board. And one of the things that I've become very much aware of is that we are, for the most part, for lack of organization, operating within someone else's 100-year plan or 200 or 400-year plan, right? Mm-hmm. And in the communities that we come from, that ignorance is bliss is really a disservice and almost diabolical, because we're talking about getting a whole generation that will have ripples into their future to accept a condition that is not normal. And so therefore, they've taken the abnormal and we've made it normal when it's abnormal.
Yeah, yeah.
For
sure.
And so fast forward to my, so to speak, introduction to the world for folks that were on the outside looking in. It was when I was 15 years old and I was wrongly accused of raping the Central Park jogger in the Central Park jogger case in 1989. And because of that, in a country where the law states that you're innocent until proven guilty, if you look like me, Right now, they define it, they codify it, right? They try to give meaning and definition to it. And they say, well, we've been placed in the window and others have been able to look in the mirror. So we're in the window of life and they're looking in the mirror of life. We've been given a definition where they'll say, you have the complexion for rejection. And then we accept it. Oh man, it's the same idea. The curse of Ham, so to speak. The thing of how do you get out of the margins of life when that's not the normal way to be? We've made, in many ways, struggle look attractive, right?
Yeah.
We've made survival look attractive. But the truth of the matter is that we are all supposed to be given the opportunity to thrive. My development was arrested at 15 because of the political schemes, not necessarily just on me, but because of who I am and who I'm from, of us as a people. We became the poster children of deviance.
Yeah.
You know, the 1994 crime bill, you know, the fact that they called us urban terrorists, you know, especially in light of what we see in the world today, how that same ideology plays out and allows for people to say those individuals are animals. And so therefore we can protect and serve from them, right? As opposed to protect and serve all. As opposed to be guardians of society for everyone, we're guarding our society from you all who've been denied. And then when you think about, you know, the Central Park Five, as we were once known, going into Central Park, which really was our backyard, which really was a place and still is a place where every single person in the world has the opportunity to experience and enjoy. But then even deeper when you think about it, we were really coming home. Because what is Central Park? If we understand the history, we're talking about Seneca Village.
Right.
We're talking about a land that was owned by Black people, that we didn't feel a separation, but they made that invisible barrier. And, you know, even in 1989, they said they could have done it any other place as if it was the truth, that we did this. But they did it in Central Park. Central Park was holy.
Right.
This is what, you know, I mean, if you look at some of the commentary from back then, even with people in, you know, high places, this is what people talked about. This is how they defined it. And of course, because of that single narrative, we didn't have the opportunity to fight for ourselves. The only thing we could do, and to our benefit, was stand tall. And so when you look back at those photos, you see people who are still yet unbroken, even though the spike wheels of justice ran over us. People who, in many ways, when we fast forward to the current space and time, we then now represent, and we then become the ambassadors of other people's pain.
Right.
Because everyone can relate to our story. Either they've been in it, either they've been run over by the system, or they know from 6 degrees of separation someone else. And most certainly everyone in Harlem, as soon as you say, well, who are they? You know, the Central Park Five.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, now they're called the Exonerated Five. And now I'll be getting the opportunity to soon be called Councilman. It's almost like I'm the outgrowth, the birthing of a Nas lyric, where him, and when he was married to Khalees, he said, I want somebody from my hood to be my councilman.
Right.
And here we are.
It's a beautiful thing. It really is. And there are also some tough realities that I've been seeing in terms of just straight up facts and data about the system. And it seems like there's still a long way to go in terms of progress, especially for Black men.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Because there was an interesting quote that I saw that said the most endangered species in America is the Black male, and just about kind of the transition from when you served to present day. I think there's a lot of work to be done, so I just wanted to see your take on that statement.
Absolutely. I mean, when I think about that statement, that quote, by the late great Reverend Dr. Reverend Calvin Butts, I'm also very much aware that that is our reality, but most certainly that is the reality in the world. That no matter where you go, we are seen as a threat. And therefore, the way we're dealt with, when you think about what happened with Mike Brown, this big, strong officer said that Mike Brown grew in size, and so therefore he had to be put down. When you think about what happened in Staten Island with Eric Garner, in a city just like around the whole world, around the country, where you see on the side of cop cars where it says to serve and protect, but in a city that goes above and beyond that and adds the words courtesy, professionalism, and respect. Eric Garner can't get the first letters off of the cop car. And he's telling them he can't breathe, but they're not giving him CPR. The other part of the challenge that has to be really understood, perhaps tasted and digested and then maybe regurgitated as well, is this idea that my mother gave me when I was in the precinct and I was being interrogated. And that idea that she gave me, these words that she left me with at that moment in time, was that they need you to participate in whatever it is they're trying to do. Do not participate, she said. Refuse. And so when I think about the fact that that is a truth in our communities, in America, and throughout the world, I'm also very, very much aware of the desire for us to be willing participants, perhaps unwitting participants in our own demise, right? If we can be destabilized enough to be placed in a position where we are truly in survival mode, I can't think about you. I can only think about me.
Yeah.
But if I think about you, we bring community back. If I think about you and I get the opportunity to say, well, what would I like to see for my own self, right? Then above and beyond that, that means that I also say to myself, you know what, I'm going to, as Raymond Santana eloquently put it one time we were on stage together, I'm going to occupy all spaces. They want us to occupy jail cells. In our communities, if you ask the question, which one of you believe you're going to be dead or in jail before you reach the age of 21? Every hand will go up, especially in a young audience. Every hand will go up. But if you ask a question right after, a follow-up question that says, how many of you, if you had the opportunity to plan your life for yourself, would include that you want to be dead or in jail before you reach the age of 21? No one would raise their hand. And so our unwitting participation in a system that is against the ability for our sanity to exist. There's money to be made if we can be pushed into the margins of life. And then therefore we emotionally respond in that reality, and we become unwitting participants, sometimes in our own death, sometimes in the prison industrial complex. But in the words of Raymond Santana, occupy all spaces when they want you to occupy a jail cell. What does that mean? That means that we have to begin to become educated to what's really going on. We have to wisen up. We have to grow up very, very fast. I would say we have to, in the classroom of life, learn how to get what we need so that we can skip grades
Right.
to be ahead of the game. Because we're playing chess.
Yeah.
We're not, and we're not even playing chess as new, like those of us who are playing chess right now, we're playing as neophytes in a way. Oh, you mean this is how the game goes and this is what you do. We need to wisen up and become masters at this.
Right.
Because trust me, if we only have a plan that spans 5 years, we're not doing it right. We have to have a plan that allows, and I'm going to call it the Nipsey Hussle plan, for lack of a better description. You know, Nipsey Hussle left us with something really profound. And what it was that he left us with was the opportunity for us to see value in our own communities. Here's a person who is a megastar, who can live anywhere in the world, but decides to find value in his community. Who he in many ways is planting the seeds for the trees that will be grown in the community, whose shade he would never sit under. The shade which may never shade his children or his children's children. But those seeds of value have been planted.
Yeah.
And so therefore someone is going to be able to sit under the shade of those trees. And we have to plan in those kinds of clips, 100-year cycles, so that it gives us the opportunity to not be. And it's weird because it's almost as if we get the opportunity to be Neo in the Matrix, right? But we have to believe in ourselves again, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, we are endangered. Yes, we are. Absolutely. I'm never going to turn a blind eye to that truth. But I'm also going to present the possibility that we can fight again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because it is a fight, but ultimately it's a fight for your participation. Because if you know, hey, listen, if we look at the endangered aspect, then if we occupy all spaces and I become a guardian of society, now, because I look like you, I'm not saying that we become the embodiment of KRS-One's song Black Cop. Right, we gotta understand that reality as well and say, hold on, how does that work?
Right.
And is it because that officer is pulled into the dream? Well, if that's true, then we also gotta remember when Kanye West was saying, and I'm not saying he's insane, but I'm saying when he was not labeled as an insane person, he said, even if I'm in a Benz, I'm still in a coupe.
Yeah.
So we're still driving around in someone else's reality. More comfortable, more, we're eating steak, Jay-Z. This is Jay-Z said. Jay-Z said, what you eat not gonna make me use the bathroom. And he didn't say it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you understand it, it's like, wait, hold on. But what if we all can eat? Right?
Yeah.
And those things, those seeds of value have to be planted because we're at war.
Yeah.
And by the time we realize it, it'll be too late.
Right.
100 yards, 100 yards, 100 yards, 100 yards. Run it, run it, run it. Swing. 100 yards, 100 yards, 100 yards, 100 yards. Run it, run it, run it.